Sharet's website, along with a transcript for you to use as a resource. Participants' faces and names, of course, will not be on the recording. You also have the option to be anonymous this evening. You can turn off your camera and even change the name in your Zoom square. These instructions are in the chat box right now, and that will help you make those changes. We received a great number of questions through the registration process, and questions I'm sure will arise during the presentation itself. Please use the chat box and we will address them during the Q&A at the end of the webinar. As a reminder, Sharsheret has been providing telehealth services to the breast and ovarian cancer communities for more than 20 years because cancer is so much more than a physical experience. If you're interested in finding out more about Sharsheret's free, confidential, and personalized services, please email us or visit our website at sharsheret.org. Before we welcome our experts today, we are so very fortunate to welcome Laura Lee, who is a Sharsheret program participant and is willing to share some of her story this evening. So Laura Lee, welcome to the webinar.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here and to just share a little bit. I love Sharsheret. The resources and the people that they provide have been amazing. I benefited from the Best Face Forward, which they introduced me to. It was the simple little things, a cosmetic line called Thrive. And, Thrive, they look to provide support for women going through breast cancer. And so it was a win-win in a lot of ways. Their products are really good. I'm also enrolled in the nutritional program that they offer that's not only helped me to better understand how to eat healthier, but the person is also very focused on the eating foods that will reduce the risk of cancer as well as reoccurrence, which is amazing information. They also, through their assistance with Sawyer Institute, I had the luxury, honestly, of being able to get my eyebrows microbladed because I didn't have any. I lost them during the first part of my chemo. And, it's as simple as that might sound. You look in the mirror and not that purpose defines who you are, but you want to feel like you look pretty. So Sharsheret and the Sawyer Institute has helped me to be able to do that. There wasn't anybody who did the tattooing in St. Louis, so they actually had to find one, and they've been able to secure a tattoo artist that not only does the microblading, but they also do their areola tattooing for women who need that. So, it's just amazing what they offer. I also had the luxury of working with Sharna Goldsmith, and she provided me with this lovely wig. So again, you're not defined. I'm not defined by my appearance, but it's nice to be able to look in the mirror and see the person that I was in some ways before, with eyebrows, with hair that is closer to what it was before chemo. On this wig, I have a little pixie haircut and it's gray, and I'm used to having long auburn hair. So this has just given me the ability to feel confident. Thank you.
Laura Lee, thank you so much for sharing your story. It was so moving and you've made it so clear why we are talking about this tonight, because these cosmetic issues, these non-medical side effects aren't frivolous. They are important to us and our self-esteem and the way we define ourselves. So let's learn some more about this program. You know, as we move into the webinar itself, I just need to remind you that Sharsheret is a national nonprofit cancer support and education program and does not provide any medical advice or do any medical procedures. So the information provided by Sharsheret is not a substitute for medical advice or treatment for a specific medical condition. You should not use this information to diagnose or treat a health problem. And as always, seek the advice of your physician or qualified health provider with any questions you have regarding your specific medical condition. Okay, we are so very fortunate to have several amazing speakers here with us today, all experts involved with our BFF 2.0 program. Our BFF 2.0, otherwise known as Best Face Forward 2.0 program, provides services and subsidies for eligible individuals for non-medical services that are critical to a woman's quality of life and body image, and that are either only partly covered by insurance, if at all. As you'll hear tonight, Best Face Forward services include financial subsidies for wigs, otherwise known as cranial hair prosthesis, cold caps or scalp cooling treatments, and tattooing, three-dimensional micropigmentation of the nipple and areola, and tattooing of eyebrows, as we just learned, microblading. Additionally, there are complementary and holistic offerings such as meditation and yoga. Joining us first is Mandy Soller, founder and owner of the Soller Institute of Tattooing. She specializes in micropigmentation, and medical tattooist Tion Milburn, otherwise known as T. T is a scalp micropigmentation and scar camouflage specialist. Both have multiple certifications. Welcome to both of you.
Hello, how are you?
Thank you, guys. Hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us. Sharsheret has been an amazing organization to work with throughout the last several years, and we've been so happy to work with you guys. You've been nothing but amazing, and we hear nothing but great things about you from our clients. So I'm Mandy Soller. I am founder of the Soller Institute. I just want to tell you a little bit more about what we do. We do the areola and nipple tattooing, and that is a process that after reconstruction, you can choose to have nipple reconstruction, and we still create the tattooing with that, or you can decide to do the 3D areola nipple tattooing where you opt out of the nipple reconstruction and you just create the illusion of a nipple with the areola nipple tattooing. So in both cases, we're still doing tattooing for that after the reconstruction. This is I think this is a huge thing to think about, because a lot of people don't know the impact that it makes. With just adding a little bit of color there, it really takes away from every other little imperfection. And so many people are very nervous about it. And once they get here, they're like, I don't know why I was so nervous. This is the most amazing thing I ever did. So I'm open to any questions about this process. We also do, and also we not only do this here where we're at in several locations, but we do have and found artists all over the United States. So just keep in mind that, yes, we are local to the East Coast, but we have artists all over the United States that, that we, really went through and made sure that they were properly licensed and qualified, and will provide great service for anyone that's interested in this service. And for areola nipple tats, for eyebrows, we also do that. So microblading, hair stroke, powdered fill brows. This is great for pre or post-op chemotherapy if you're going through chemotherapy, or even if just during the process you've lost, hair, whether it was even from stress or with age and things like that during this process. It's a great way to enhance that, and we're happy to provide this service. We do other things like eyeliner and lip coloring and things like that too, but sometimes it's just nice to bring yourself to a state of feeling great after you've gone through such a long process and journey. So just a little bit about the services that we do. And then Tion also does some amazing services with scar camouflage. He can tell you a little bit more about what we do with scars and with, after surgery, and then also for hair loss of and hair fullness and things like that.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I am an artist here at the Institute. I do SCAR and SMP. For those who don't know what SMP is scalp, all right, micro pigmentation. Okay, I know it's hard. So let's keep it simple. SMP, right? So the bottom line of SMP is to create small, tiny hair follicles, all right, with a micro needle on top of the scalp, space it out. It probably takes me about 3 sessions and I'll complete the progress. But the one thing about scalp is that a lot of people are nervous about it. And I understand it, like a lot of people are nervous when it comes to hair loss, but I'm gonna be honest with you, SMP is great. All it is just a needle, a micro needling, and the whole agenda is to make sure it looks organic and natural as I possibly can make it, So I believe what SMP is more for the cancer patients with hair loss.
Yeah, so hair thinning.
Hair thinning, and it brings the hairline back. I can do hairlines. I even work with people who have alopecia.
Mm-hmm.
So I work with a lot of clients like that.
And what about the scars?
And scars are my favorite thing. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Scar camouflage. Scars, I believe my major job is just to match the ink with the color of your skin tone. All right, so around the scar area, let's say you have a scar on over here under your nose, you have a scar here. I will blend from here to here, and I will match the color of the skin tone over here. It's really simple. It's just the ink and blending to match the skin. And
So that sounds like an alternative for some, we hear a lot about people who get tattoos across their chest to hide the scars, but this is another, an option if somebody doesn't want a large artistic tattoo. This will just minimize the look of the scar.
Correct. So some people think of scar camouflage with tattoos as we're covering a tattoo over the scar. It's more just matching the undertones of your skin and camouflaging the scar with your natural skin tone colors. So it's a great way to look at any, surgery scars from after breast reconstruction that may be still there, or maybe some microneedling to improve the scars and things like that. So it's definitely a great option for that.
Yes.
Okay, a lot of questions came in, so don't go anywhere because we're going to circle back to you.
Go back through and start,
So, okay, so we're going to get to all those questions after we hear from everybody else. Thank you so much for that. Okay, next we have with us Bethany Hornthal of Hair to Stay, a national nonprofit dedicated to providing access to scalp cooling during chemotherapy. She is the co-founder and executive director. Bethany, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Well, thank you for having me. I want to echo everything that's been said about Sharsheret as a partner. We couldn't do what we do for the number of individuals that we do it for, which is now approaching 3,600, I think, without quite a bit of help from the generosity of Sharsheret. And I can't believe every time I start to get low in funding and I start to worry that the next people that come, we may have to say, well, I make a call, send a list, and suddenly another check arrives. So it's kind of like, I don't know, the Hanukkah or Christmas, but anyway, in January, February, March, etc. So having said that, I think that as Laura Lee really brought home, cancer takes a lot away from an individual. And some of the things that it takes include kind of identity and control and privacy and a sense of normalcy. and a sense of well-being. Those are all things that, in addition to whatever body parts are being eliminated or changed, those are all things subject to loss. And I think what we found is that hair loss is just one of the most devastating side effects of chemotherapy, because cancer will tend to walk into the room before you do if you have lost your hair. You can have a wig and that can definitely help, but people who knew you will know that there's something different about you. So you can't really control sometimes who knows if you've lost your hair. You can't, therefore your privacy is kind of affected. And the one statistic that I think really threw me into this work in full force is, and I hope you can hear me, I'm outside because I have 4 dogs inside. So I'm in the mountains in California. And so it's a little windy. I found out in research that somewhere between 8 and 12% of women will actually turn down chemo because of fear of hair loss. So that means we've stripped it away from just a vanity question, which it never really was, but now we're talking potentially life and death. So what happened is that I was working with University of California, San Francisco as a consultant, helping to find funding for clinical trials, and was asked by the director to look into this thing called scalp cooling, which to me sounded a bit like a tribal ritual. But I was told, hey, this is happening in Europe, and women aren't losing their hair during chemotherapy. And one of the patients at UCSF was dumbfounded. She wanted to like buy the thing and move it to California and use it. And lo and behold, we had no FDA clearance to use scalp cooling in the United States. So first, let me just say, what is scalp cooling and why does it work? And I had to find this out initially as well. So scalp cooling is a treatment methodology that consists of 2 things that are happening at the same time that protect the hair. When you chill down the scalp by wearing a cap during chemo, you bring the scalp down about 30 degrees. And what happens is that the blood vessels in the hair follicle get very cold and they tighten up, they constrict. It's called vasoconstriction. Anytime you get cold, you're like this. Well, your cells are like this too. And so by constricting, they're going to allow way less chemo into that follicle. So maybe 20% gets in instead of 100%. Secondly, when you chill down a cell, what happens, cancer chemo is targeting fast-growing cells, which is why you lose your hair and you lose your nails and you have problems with mucous membranes. Those are all the fastest-growing cells in the body. So it's targeting those because tumors are fast-growing cells and it needs to target those. If you chill down the cell, you slow down the metabolism of the cell. It doesn't replicate as frequently, so it's not as vulnerable to the chemo. Okay, so that's scalp cooling. It started about 30 minutes before chemotherapy. It goes through the chemotherapy session, and then depending upon the approach, 90 minutes afterwards, if you're using what is called automated scalp cooling, which is with a machine. If you're using manual scalp cooling, which is where you have a cap and you are changing it every 30 minutes, you aren't, but somebody is there with you, then you might want to keep that cap on for a longer period of time to make sure that the chemo has really left the system. But that's the sort of the insides, behind the scenes of what's happening with scalp cooling. So we were able to conduct an FDA trial on scalp cooling between 2010, 2015. We had to prove that 50% of the patients, which were women with breast cancer, would maintain at least 50% of their hair following scalp cooling treatment. And we were able to prove that about 69 to 70% of women were able to maintain at least 50% of your hair. If you keep 50% of your hair, few people know that you have been going through chemo and are losing your hair. So what Hair to Stay came to be because insurance was not really interested in how much cancer costs. and cancer treatment costs. And we found very early on that they were not going to cover at all scalp cooling originally. So having been involved in trying to bring this technology to the country, it did not feel good to me that a third of the people that would be wanting to use it would not be able to afford it, at least a third. So we began Hair to Stay in 2016. I had a co-founder, Patsy Graham, who had breast cancer, had used Penguin cold caps, and was so excited about what happened and how she was able to have her hair that she started working for Penguin cold caps. And then I approached her in 2016 when we had FDA clearance and said, would you like to take this beyond Texas and into a bigger kind of environment? So Patsy's retired. And so I am still at the helm. And at this point, we fund patients in all 50 states. We fund eligible patients, and it depends. We have two types of funding. We have a national fund, and anybody can be up to 3 times the federal poverty level. We also have targeted funds, which is what Sharsheret is, which are very generous funds. And we are able to go to a lower eligibility criteria and provide more money. So we provide, scalp cooling costs somewhere between $1,200 and $3,000, depending on how many infusions you might have. And we will provide, with Sharsheret funding, at about up to $1,750 for these treatments. So those are kind of the details. And I'm certainly open for questions and anywhere else you want me to go, Melissa, with this or not, and just save you some time. Your call.
I'm watching the questions come in. I've made some notes. So we're going to circle, once we get through all of them, we're going to circle back.
Okay.
But thank you very much. I'm sure a lot of people really learned a lot there because it's not something that the average person is familiar with. And
Right.
Speaking of hair, I'd like to share a brief video with you from Charna Goldsmith and CG Wigs, which alongside other services provides wigs to those facing hair loss from cancer treatment.
I'm Charna Goldsmith, and I'm the founder of CG Wigs. Sharsheret is a non-for-profit that helps women with ovarian and breast cancer. Being able to partner with Sharsheret and be able to provide these women with custom human hair wigs has been a life-changing experience. So while Sharsheret provides round-the-clock support and care, my company is able to provide them with getting back to a sense of their self.
The process of losing one's hair is so personal and so devastating. And having a wig that wasn't just something I ordered off a shelf, it was something that was personally designed, custom made for my size and my head and my color choices, just made all the difference in helping me to feel some degree of normal again. It was just unbelievable. I really can't even put it into words.
Today with technology, we're able to create a custom wig for any woman anywhere across the country. We basically video conference with them, talk to them a little bit about their natural hair, what they're looking to recreate. And once they choose color and send us their measurement is when our creative process begins.
Being able to have a wig custom made and designed from the comfort of my home was such a huge part of what made this so helpful for me.
Once the clients reached out to Sharsheret and we've had our first phone conversation with them, I'll explain to them how to measure their head for a wig, and then they can go ahead and email us those measurements. Once we receive the measurements, we'll go on to discuss color options and their color needs. Typically, it will take us a couple of phone or video sessions to match them. They also have the option of sending in a hair sample, and if they send us in a snippet of their hair before they do their major chop, we're actually able to perfectly color match it with our samples in the shop. Being able to work with women virtually has really been a game changer, which means that you could be across the country having a wig made for you. It gets shipped to you priority mail, and once you receive it, you can go ahead and have it finalized by a hairdresser that's local to you. I'll ship them a wig that might be a little bit longer than what they're looking for, and they can have the wig put on their head and cut on them in person. They have the option of changing or making any final touches. I think that really brings the customization process to a close and really gives them back a piece of themselves.
I had caps and I had different hair coverings, and nothing really felt like me. Nothing really felt feminine enough to sort of give me back that feeling. And the first time I put the wig on my head, I just thought, wow, it's hard to express, but thank you.
Being able to create virtually anything that a client wants or desires is probably the greatest experience in being a wig maker. We're able to meet these women's needs and design anything that they can imagine. Whether it's a wig that they want to be made to look like their natural hair or something that's completely different. We've had clients that have requested us to make them purple wigs, and we're able to do that for them. Making wigs for women that are going through chemo and being able to give them these custom beautiful pieces provides them with the dignity that they deserve and hopefully brings them a little bit of comfort in their journey along the way.
That was great. Okay, finally, I want to welcome Emily Steinberg, who is a yoga instructor at the St. Louis JCC, which has been a Sharsheret community partner for many, many years. Emily has been teaching yoga, mindfulness, and breath work for 20 years. And as I mentioned at the beginning, not only are there these other things, but there's a holistic component to it. So Emily's going to talk about that. Welcome.
Hi, welcome you guys. Thank you so much. Lovely to be here. My name is Emily Elizabeth. I teach the Yoga for Cancer virtual class online, and I've been doing that for quite a while. And I think when I think about our group, what I love the most is the community of all of us coming together every week. And it feels very much like a support group. So one of the first things we do is just connect with each other and share. There's a common thread that everyone has. For me personally, I've been teaching for 20 years, but how I landed, like why I'm here, is my mom had cancer for about 22 years, 5 different kinds, BRCA gene mutation. And then I came to find out that I also had the same. And so I went through, and this was back in 2010, but I went through preventative mastectomy and reconstruction in 2010. I did the hysterectomy and oophorectomy in 2014. So although I haven't gone through the cancer journey, I watched my mom go through it, and it's close to my heart. Forgive me, I'm a little bit nervous, but it's so lovely to be here. So cancer close to me. I mean, especially watching my mom and being there for her for all of those years, 5 different times that she had it. So our group, we support each other, and there's a connection. So I love that, and I think people love that the most. When we think about just the physical benefits of yoga, flexibility and strength and balance, of course, there's so many benefits to just supporting the immune system, supporting the nervous system, supporting the lymphatic system with breath and movement. So physically, there's lots of benefits, of course. You know, we want to be stimulating the lymphatic system, and so much of that comes from breath and movement. And so the practice we're trained in, you know, we're very cautious and careful. There's postures that we're not going to do. There's breath work that we're not going to do. I'll do a little demonstration at the end here. So there's the physical benefits. For me, the emotional benefits are just as important. Learning to drop into your body in a different way, learning to listen to the messages of the body, to begin to feel safe in the body again. So much of it for me, of course, I get excited about the physical benefits, but the emotional benefits, I think, are so important. And I do a lot of that, and I love that. Spirituality comes into play just by, you know, connecting into yourself. So that's always there for me. But I would imagine, having gone through a cancer journey, you know, there's a need to feel safe in the body again. So the mindfulness, the breath work, the presence, having, like, I think, and we're small but mighty, our group, but I think that we create this container where it's ritual, and every week we come together and it is time for me. It's time for me, meaning the students that show up. This is my time to self-care, to breathe, to be present, to listen to the messages of my body. Yeah. So I think I'm going to do a little bit of a demonstration, and I think some more information will come through as well. One of the things that I want students to feel when they come is safe to share whatever they're going through, that they want to share. And if people don't want to, they don't have to. And safe moving through the postures, and knowing that really one of the things that I focus so strongly on is in every moment, you're making choices that feel wise to you, and to be listening to that. So if something doesn't feel right, you don't do it. And the freedom in that. But, you know, yoga, of course, because I've done it for so long, the mindfulness piece, the physical practice is so powerful. And yoga for cancer, you know, we've got this common thread that everybody's going through together, and we get to lean into each other. And I hold the space, and I do teach it from a perspective of a deep understanding, and yet, you know, a respect that they're my teachers too, because I've not walked it in the same way. Okay, I'm going to teach a little. What I invite you to do is, if nothing more, breathe with me, and maybe just visualize yourself moving through the postures. There's a lot of it, we're on our back. A lot of it is breath work, visualization, and we want to get the body moving because we want to get the blood flowing. We want to stimulate the lymph. We want to build strength. We want to, like, you know, even the weight bearing for the bones. The benefits are many. Okay, I'll do a little demonstration. We use we don't do things like downward dog. We don't do a lot of inversions, and it's so gentle. It's very gentle. In yoga for cancer class, we use 2 blocks. I know it's dark in here. I apologize.
See you. It's better down.
Okay. It's better with this down?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right. So we just come into stand, into mountain pose. We bring the hands to the heart. And just find your breath. Take a nice big breath in with me. And a full breath out. On your inhale, we reach the arms up. And as you exhale, you're going to come into chair pose, and you bring your hands to the blocks. So I keep my back nice and straight. My legs are strong. I'm going to press into the block and step my right foot back and bring my right knee down. So we go nice and slow. Inhale, reach the arms up. I'm going to do 1 on each side. Exhale, bring the hands down. So we're moving in rhythm with the breath. Inhale, lift the right leg. And exhale, we step back to chair. And I go nice and slow. Push to stand. You can kind of feel your heart elevate a little bit. And exhale. More intentional, really. I am always guiding my students to be intentional with what you're breathing in, what you're breathing in, what you're breathing out, what you're receiving, what you're letting go of, so that it's almost like prayer or intention, positive, with every breath. Inhale, arms up. Exhale to come down. Inhale, the left leg steps back and the left knee releases down as you exhale. Inhale, arms reach up. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. So I breathe loud because I want, not that you have to breathe that loud, but I want people to be following in that way. And just, I'll have students that will come and they won't do the physical practice. They'll be, I'm tired today. I want to lay down, but I want to hear your voice. I want the visualization. I want the positive intention, and I want the connection. And I welcome it. So really everybody shows up and does exactly what serves them in the moment. Yeah, I think that's it.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. I can get a sense of how this type of activity really does complement the other things we've been talking about. I'll be honest that when we started this program, I thought it was great we were doing these complementary offerings, but I didn't make the connection. And now I understand the connection, right? It helps with self-care and the way we envision ourselves and the way, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Right, somebody's already saying even that short bit was therapeutic.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Absolutely. I want to get to your questions. So we received a good number of questions and we'll get to as many as possible. But I want to clarify something first. Before we answer any questions, that any questions you have as participants tonight that are about applying for or receiving any BFF 2.0 resources should be addressed to clinicalteam@sharsheret.org, which is in the chat box right now. To receive any of these benefits, you have to start the process with Sharsheret and not the opposite way. So you wouldn't call any of these places directly, you call Sharsheret, we make the connections for you. Okay, let's get to these questions. So it's interesting, or you can start online. Yes, that goes in the chat box also. It's interesting, Emily, that you mentioned you don't do a lot of inversions, because somebody did ask, is it possible to do downward dog? And if not, why is that the case?
I think, we're mindful of anybody not getting dizzy. We don't want to do anything that's going to cause anxiety. If a student wants to do downward facing dog, I would say, I guess I'm a believer that it's a listening in, it's a deeper relationship with self, and you know what's best. And if there is an intuition that that's not right for me, I'm not going to do it. And if there's an intuition of I want to do this, so in a way, I'm a believer of really listening to the body, but we try to keep things really gentle. Somebody commented, I'm not comfortable with some of those movements. And that's the other thing I want to stress, is that there is so much that we can do. There's so much that we can do. And there are things that are important to not do. Like, for instance, in yoga pranayama breath work, in a typical class, I might teach, we're going to take a deep breath in for a count of 5. We're going to hold it for 5. We're going to exhale for 10. We don't do breath retention. We're not taught to do breath retention, because that might trigger. That might be like, so there are things that we're specifically taught not to do. Yeah.
Yoga for cancer is a little bit different than going to a regular yoga class, which is why if you're in an area that has that, you might seek that out, or you might find some videos online at the Sharsheret website or elsewhere, because there really is a difference. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So I have a couple of questions for Mandy and for Tian. So one question is that someone says they had areola and nipple tattooing, but the color doesn't match the real remaining breast. And is it possible that it can be fixed after it's done if you're not satisfied with the results?
Yes, absolutely can fix it for the most part, I would say. Usually I would have them send us photos or we can consult them, but in the majority of the situations that happens, the color's usually faded at that point, which leads into another question that I did see on there that says that they've had it done several times and the pigment had faded. This is a little different because we're using different inks. There's also multiple reasons why the ink could have faded over time, or maybe the color's not matching. There's a different line of inks now where you can really match any skin tone from anywhere around the world and match that areola. So I have a set that I developed that's sold all over the world that you can match a unilateral. So if you only have one side, matching is a very difficult task, but with this set, you should be able to match any unilateral with that set. So, and also just redoing an areola that has maybe faded, maybe I've had it done 2 times, or maybe I've had it done 4 times. I've had the tattooing and it didn't hold. It could be multiple reasons. It could have been the process that the person did. It could have been the ink that they used. We did a study at the University of Penn Medicine, and we did the 2 different types of inks. So we have, like kind of think of it as like, an iron oxide ink where it's going to fade over time. And you have like, you think of people with traditional tattoos and you're like, why is my nipple tattoo fading when these people are walking around with tattoos all their lives, like what's going on? Why do I have to go back 2, 3, 4 times? So these pigments are more heavily pigmented, so they're going to last longer. So what we use these type of inks that are going to last longer over time. It just doesn't make sense for the client to have to keep coming back over and over and over again. So usually what we do is it's 1 procedure. In some cases it's 2, because you have to remember you're working in skin that's been compromised. So you have scar tissue, you have all these things. So it may be 2, but from there on it should be good. You should be good for a long time, and unless you do topless beaches or something, I don't know. Sun exposure, I'm just trying to be funny. Sun exposure will fade the tattoo. So we do get sun through our bathing suits and things like that. So you just want to protect it. But otherwise, yes, we can absolutely correct work. We do a lot of correct work.
So another question we received was, some people's plastic surgeons say, oh, you don't have to go to a special tattooist. We can do it as we're putting your implant in or doing whatever. So can you talk to us about the difference between having a plastic surgeon do it versus someone like who works at your institute or other similar places? And then the next question we got is the difference between a medical grade tattoo versus just a regular tattoo. So my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that medical grade tattoo doesn't necessarily mean you had it done in an operating room when you were having surgery. Those are 2 different things we're talking about. So could you kind of explain all that, clear that up?
Okay, yes. So the difference between a doctor doing your tattoo is a doctor is trained to be a doctor. A tattoo artist is trained to be a tattoo artist. And let's be realistic, like I'm good with my hands, but that doesn't mean I can go into the operating room and do a tattoo. I mean, a plastic surgery. But a doctor thinks since I'm a doctor, I'm good with needles, that I could possibly do a tattoo. So you have to be an artist, I think that's more too. You have to be trained in these type of procedures. We train people all over the world to do this, and it's an art. So it's an artistic thing that you have to know and learn, and really learn the whole process. So I think that you may be able to find someone in a medical facility that's properly trained to do this type of procedure. But, it just depends. I would just do your research diligently for that part of it. If you are going to have someone in the medical facility do that, ask them what type of inks they're using. No, there's not necessarily a medical grade tattoo per se, I would say. It's not something that's done in an OR. I mean, when we do our tattoos, and all of our artists all over the United States do our tattoos, it's done in a professional setting. It's done in a clean room. Everyone is bloodborne pathogen certified. so you're getting up to, up to the standards that we're going to provide. Or if, if you're looking for an artist in the state that we found for you guys, that's what you're going to find, someone that's qualified in all those and safety aspects of tattooing. You're not going in someone's house and using dirty needles and things like that. So that's what we wanted to provide for everyone.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, a couple of questions about scalp cooling. So one of them is, are there any side effects to scalp cooling, both immediate or long-term? Bethany, I can't hear you. Perhaps other people can. No. Okay, so we're gonna go on to another question with someone else while we figure out what's going on with your computer. Okay, one of the other questions we got, somebody had an interesting question for Tian, which was the SMP. I hope I got that right. What happens when hair begins growing in again and either comes in gray, but you've tattooed it the color of the original hair, or somebody chooses to dye?
So the goal for that is SMP. It just creates an overshadow of the scalp. All right. Remember, it's this tiny hair follicle pigments I put in there with a tiny micro needle. So if your hair is growing in gray, it doesn't have anything to do with the overshadow underneath the scalp. Okay. But you would have to come in probably every 3 years to get a touch up.
That's far less frequently than getting hair dyed. So, I still count that as a win. Thank you.
Better than using those powders and those talc powders that people put on their scalps for hair thinning or spots and things like that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. Somebody asked, do you see women who have chosen to go flat as opposed to opting for reconstruction choose to also have nipple and areola tattooing?
Yes, I haven't saw a ton of women that done that, but I know women have done traditional tattoos that way. I have done areola tattooing on someone that didn't have reconstruction, so that's definitely an option for someone that hasn't had reconstruction.
Okay. All right, thank you for that.
I think I might be back.
You are back. Okay, so we were talking about side effects, both immediate and any long term.
Okay. So the biggest side effect of scalp cooling is just how cold it is. And of the 102 participants in the trial, 2 decided that it wasn't comfortable enough that they would continue. So it's very rare that somebody will stop for that. And nowadays what's done usually is that you might have a Tylenol before you get started. You might even have an Ativan before you get started. It's kind of like a brain freeze for the first 5 or so minutes. So you can kind of liken it to that. If you're doing the automated scalp cooling with a machine, which is in about 600 to 700 facilities, they gradually cool it down. After about 5, 6, 7 minutes, your scalp is numb. So you no longer feel cold from that. You may feel cold, but you won't feel that feeling. Long term, it's not an invasive technique. It's just applying ice, not ice, but it's applying cold to an area of the body. So as long as it's done professionally, and the reason the FDA has cleared the automated devices and not the manual ones is just because there is a slight chance that if you take a manual cap off of dry ice and you don't know what you're doing, you could have some, freezer burn kind of situation. It's very rare, but it can happen. But other than that, the side effects might be a headache from the cold initially, but usually a Tylenol is what's administered and on they go.
And another question is automated versus manual. You've explained why one is FDA approved and the other isn't, but is there more success with one versus the other?
So we have this thing called, practice makes perfect. With scalp cooling, it's like anything else. Whoever is operating the scalp cooling is going to have some impact on how effective it is. between automated and manual, they can be both as effective. And in fact, with manual, you get to take it home if you want, and you can continue longer. And there is an argument that with some chemotherapy regimens, the most toxic, maybe that is a better way to go. But really, when a nurse oncologist has worked several times with scalp cooling in that infusion center, they get pretty darn good. And they're the ones who are administering scalp cooling in a hospital setting in an infusion center for automated. For manual, you are always going to be bringing that either with, if you can afford a professional capper, you can bring someone in with you, or partners, friends, family, may be helping. And some women I know have had this gaggle of women who come with them to each scalp cooling session or whatever, or each one, and they switch off, and which is wonderful for the person, but they have to relearn something or learn something new each time. So those are kind of the issues of effectiveness.
And I actually saw in the chat box just now that the scalp cooling doesn't necessarily work with every treatment protocol. So it's more effective with certain treatment protocols, certain chemotherapy drugs than it is with others.
Yeah, so I think scalp cooling is going to depend on a few things. It's going to depend on the level of toxicity of the treatment. The most toxic treatment, women are familiar with the term the red devil, or adriamycin Cytoxan. That is one of the most toxic therapies that are used effectively. And it's interesting, we have situations where patients have been unable to maintain the majority of their hair or have lost most of their hair with AC. But I know a 32-year-old who swears she didn't lose a piece of hair. So I know both sides, but the more toxic that regimen is, probably the more hair thinning you're going to see. Also, it depends on the thickness of your hair. Interestingly enough, in African-American hair, because it's as thick, it's a little harder to conduct the cold right down to the scalp. Now, there's work being done right now on lotions and things that will help that. So it depends on, it's different things that will indicate how successful you'll be.
Okay, I wish we had time for more questions, but I do have to bring this to a close. So just a few more minutes. I want to, first of all, again, thank all of you for sharing your expertise and your passions with us today, as well as your experience, Laura Lee. I hope you all learned as much as I did. I want to thank our generous sponsors, Daiichi Sankyo and Merck. And before we close today, I just want to take the opportunity to share one additional Charceret resource with you. Before we had BFF 2.0, we had our original BFF, or Best Face Forward kit. These free kits were created to help women address the cosmetic side effects of treatment. The kits all include paraben and phthalate-free makeups and lotions. It includes all of them include brow guides and instructions on how to use everything. The kit can be used on its own or in conjunction with 2.0 subsidies. So right now in your chat box is a link to an evaluation survey on today's program. In addition to evaluating tonight's program, it will give you the opportunity to order your free BFF kit or to apply or ask questions about the BFF 2.0 subsidies. It's linked in the chat box right now. And during the next few days, early next week, you'll receive a follow-up email with a link to tonight's recording, a transcript, and access again to some of the resources we've discussed. So please be on the lookout for that email. And please remember that Charceret is here for you and your loved ones during this time. We provide emotional support, mental health counseling, and programs such as the ones we've talked about tonight to help you navigate through your cancer experience. All are completely free, private, one-on-one. Our number's in the chat box right now, 866-474-2774. And of course, you can email us at clinicalstaff@charcheret.org. That was also in the chat box. Remember, we'd love to stay connected with you through social media, where we post about events like these, program updates. We actually just posted today or yesterday a new study about cold capping. So lots of good information there. Thank you for joining us and have a wonderful evening. Good night.
Thank you.